Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to overcome addiction or keep from, quote, screwing up or attacking yourself with your mind, then do we have the show for you. Today I'll be talking with Chris Grosso, writer, speaker, author of The Indie Spiritualist and Everything Mind, host of the Indie Spiritualist Podcast, and the author of a brilliant new read, Dead Set on Living. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about making the difficult but beautiful journey from effing up to waking up. That plus we'll talk about late fees and the Russell Library, curb your enthusiasm and impractical jokers, David Lynch and Quentin Tarantino, William S. Burroughs and Jack Kerouac, the law of attraction and spiritual puberty, how to manifest yellow butterflies, and what in the world dancing to La Butcherettes has to do with anything.
We'll have to get my editor in on for that one, but
no.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever been so excited to do an interview before.
Well, welcome back to the show, Chris.
Yes.
Are you ready to shine?
Let's do this thing.
Woohoo! All right. From that level of excitement, I hate to bring us down right here, but before we dive right into things, would you mind going back in time and tell us a little bit of what happened since we last spoke a few years back?
Yeah, for sure. So, I know we were talking about that pre-interview and don't have the exact timestamp on that, but guesstimating, I believe I was living roughly around this time, which would probably be 2014, 2015, in Ottawa with my now ex-wife and my stepdaughter. And things were going really well. I was traveling, speaking, doing like Wanderlust Festival, Sedona World Wisdom Days, just a bunch of really, really great events. Celebrate Your Life. And unfortunately, I was not taking care of myself and my recovery to the degree which I need to. And it got the better of me. Ended up relapsing, which it was only a matter of 24 hours. But in that short 24 hours, it nearly took my life. I mean, quite literally, I was hooked up to an intubator in the hospital. They had to put a tube in me into my lungs to breathe for me because I was no longer breathing. And, to nutshell this, it essentially ended up in the end of my marriage, but things had been going a little rocky prior to then. So it was an amicable split. It was not, anything ugly. We wished one another the best. So I'm very grateful for that. So then I moved from Ottawa, Canada back to Connecticut. Was working on my latest book, which you have in your lovely background there. I'm so excited to see that. Super cool. Thank you for doing that. It's called Dead Set on Living. Came out earlier this year with Simon & Schuster. I'm really excited about this book. And aside from that, living in West Hartford, Connecticut with my new incredible girlfriend and feeling incredibly blessed every single day. So in a nutshell.
So let's go from there then. Thank you so much for sharing. And let's talk about this because addiction comes on so many levels. And I know if I was to have an addiction at this point in my life and I work on it like the Dickens, it is a level of negativity. I'm a very positive person, but there's what I call the screw up gene inside of me that every once in a while comes out to play. And I can see where it came from in my childhood, but it's that deep groove in the record. Can you tell us, we'll go to the Trance of Unworthiness, Tara Brach. We're going to take some of the examples in your book. What does it mean to be a refuge unto ourselves?
So when I talked to Tara about that, that's actually something that, who can really say if the Buddha said it or not, but it is attributed to the Buddha, being a refuge unto ourselves. And that's often somewhat misconstrued because people think they hear that, not everyone, but some people, and it's like, oh, so I can just do this on my own, or I should do this on my own. And as Tara points out in that chapter, and really any quality teacher would say, at the end of the day, you are the one that needs to find out. I mean, even basically the Buddha said in so many words, something to the effect of, look, check it out for yourself, try it on. If it works, great. If not, find what does. So, essentially any teacher that I consider of value, their end goal is ultimately to get you to be that lamp unto yourself, not to create students and become this guru that people worship them, but essentially to guide them in their own path and help them in their own journey of liberation and freedom. So, I think for me, and it's something that it's a work in progress. There are certain days where I feel like I am a lamp unto myself, and that's been through much trial and error. And there are other days where I certainly feel anything but like a lamp unto myself. And that's okay. It's part of the human experience. So some days I can do my best to help be that lamp for somebody else. Other days I look to others to be that lamp for me. And then some days, or probably most days, it's a little of both, give and take, So that's my experience of it. You might ask, 10 other people and get 10 different responses, but that's what I take away from it.
One of the things that you say there, or that Tara says, it's not until we begin to forgive that addictiveness is there that we can begin to heal the actual wound that's underneath it.
Yeah. That's so big. That for me personally has been what really shifted my own experience of recovery and well-being night and day. Once I really began to do that, and Tara's talked quite a bit about that in her old books, as a lot of other teachers have, but there is a self-denigration that comes along with addiction. Not just addiction, though. I mean, human beings most of us have this ingrained, negative self-talk. I don't know where it came from, but it seems to be a generational thing passed on from our parents and their parents' parents. And of course, they're all doing the best they can. Mm-hmm. But, we give what we have and what we know. And so ultimately it's up to each one of us to break these patterns. And that, of course, is much easier said than done. However, I look today at my own experience and my past experience, and there are some things that are very hard for me, even in this moment, to face. I mean, I've never robbed or murdered anyone or anything of that nature, but I've hurt people emotionally and mentally. And that's just part of the ugliness that comes along with addiction. And the trick for me is to recognize, man, yes, that sucks, but I cannot change what is in the past. The best I can do is forgive myself as much as I can today, and some days are better than others and easier than others. But aside from that, also do my best to be a good person today and make what's called a living amends, which is essentially just showing up for myself first and foremost, so that I can be there for others as well, in whatever capacity that might look like. And one note I want to make really quickly for your audience is that even though I'm using the word addiction or, talking about drugs and alcohol, I invite anyone listening or watching this to simply replace that. If drugs and alcohol aren't your thing, please replace that with whatever it is in your life you might be struggling with. Because even though the particular substance may be different, I think the words around it and what we're pointing at in this conversation, it's a very universal healing thing. So just wanted to add that little caveat on there.
I appreciate it, and I couldn't agree more. Well, what's the importance of moving past the if-only mind?
Yeah, so if only, that's a big one we get caught in. If only I had that job, or if only I had this perfect partner, or if only I was 10 pounds lighter, is essentially putting our happiness at arm's length away at all times. And again, you know me, Michael, I'm very transparent. That's something I can sit here and talk to you about all day, but I'd be lying if I said I don't still struggle with that. We were talking pre-interview about how I haven't been running for about 6 weeks due to an ankle injury, and I've just gotten back into it recently, and I have very slow metabolism. And for me, if I'm not doing cardio exercise and not eating the best diet, which I try to, but sometimes I let myself slip up a little more than I know I should, then I gain weight easily. And so right now, I'm probably 15 pounds heavier than I usually am. And so I'm getting back into running. I'm really diligent in healthy eating again, and I want to be back to where I was. And it's if only I was there, then I'd feel happy again. But I have to pause and recognize I'm doing everything I can today. And what more can I ask for? I'm feeling physically better because I'm running. I'm putting healthier foods into my body. I'm not taking in that sugar. And not there's anything wrong with that, in moderation, of course. But what more can I ask for? Today I woke up. I'm not caught in the cycle of addiction right now. I'm not hungover. I'm not withdrawing. I'm healthy. And really, I'm so blessed to have that. I have a roof over my head. I have food in the fridge and water to drink and a bed to sleep on. So many people don't have that. So, if only, I understand it. And that doesn't mean don't strive for things, but don't lose sight of what you have in this moment. And I bet if you take an honest look, it's more than you might think.
it sounds almost like, I hate the term lip service. There's a better word for it. Too weak, but would you say, and I think it's a very powerful term, gratitude could be the antidote for if only?
Oh, I couldn't agree more, actually. And absolutely, that's why for me, gratitude is such an important practice. Either sometimes I will carve out a few minutes in the morning to just sit and work with my malas and just say thank you over and over and over. Or perhaps while I'm out running, for example, just seeing the beauty of trees, whatever the case may be, things I might take for granted. I like to pretend sometimes like this is my first day on earth and look through the lens of never experiencing what I'm seeing. It might sound a little weird, but like
No,
that
it's
brings
beautiful.
a freshness to me. Thanks. Yeah, it's like, it helps me to really look at trees instead of seeing the tree with my eyes but being lost in thought, which that of course still happens, but really trying to look at it as if I've never seen it before. And that not only brings me back to the present moment, but helps with gratitude. And a practice I try to use when I go to sleep at night, not every night, is the gratitude alphabet. And I'll tell you what, if not only is it a nice way to end your evening, but for anybody who struggles with sleeping like I do, there are times I certainly have trouble falling asleep. The gratitude alphabet is simply you go through letter by letter and you think of literally anything you are grateful for that starts with that letter. And I'll tell you, Michael, I don't know that I've really made it past the H-I-J-K, like that area, because usually by then I'm so focused, I'm out. It puts me to sleep. And what a wonderful note to go to bed on, a heart full of gratitude.
I've had a lot of guests. We're over 900 shows in, and a lot of tools. I haven't heard that one before, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's so simple. You can't go wrong. And I use it at bed, but you can use it anytime. You're stuck in traffic. You're up in the morning. You're standing in line at the grocery store instead of getting tense or whatever. Of course, there's great breath practices and whatnot to work with too, but it's just another tool for the toolbox. So, yeah.
Awesome. So another tool, I wonder if you can go over with us. It's not yours, but I believe you practice it, which is practicing RAIN: recognize, allow, investigate, and non-identification.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Tara is the one who turned me on to it, but there was actually a teacher prior to her, and I don't recall the teacher's name. It is in the book, and thank goodness. It was either Locke Kelly or Michael Taft, one of the two, who are both wonderful teachers in their own right, who let me know that. And luckily, we were able to put that in the book. I'm so grateful because I'm a big proponent of credit where credit's due. And I'm remiss right now that I can't think of the person's name. But anyways, I think Tara's the one who's made it most popular because she's obviously a very big teacher and she teaches that all the time. But so RAIN, the example I give in the book, because I could have used a very heavy, like this was a deep experience for me, but I wanted to give something lighter because it's something that it's a practice that's applicable any time of the day. So I use this. It was from an experience. Now we're going back probably almost a year and a half ago. I'm looking for a new apartment. I find a really great one I love in Hartford. I think I have it. I fill out the paperwork, and it was beautiful artist housing, so right up my alley. And I found out that in no way am I rich, but I made just too much to be a candidate for the apartment. So I was really bummed out about it. And I got in my car, and I think I had just spoken with Tara, and not for the book, but unrelated. I think I'd had her on the podcast or something, and we were talking about that. And I'm like, well, what better time than now to put this into practice? So I recognized the emotions that were coming up instead of creating a whole story about them. Okay, this is interesting. Here's where I'm going with this experience. And then accepting that, allowing that to be, here it is, like not fighting against it, not feeding into it. This is what's happening in the moment. And then investigating that. So going a little deeper, doing a body scan. Am I feeling any physical sensations in relation to this? And in that case, I think it was some tightness in my shoulders, or maybe something in my stomach, or maybe both. But, so feeling if there's any related physical ailments that come with that. And if there aren't, there aren't. If there are, there are. You're not doing anything with it. You're just becoming more, you're becoming closer to it, a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Intimate in a way with your own experience in that moment. And then the final one is the non-identification, which I think I was kind of doing the whole time, but it's so big, is the practice of not identifying so tightly with the experience. And I think back to Eckhart Tolle. I think I'd watched a talk in which he was talking about, and he's probably written about this too, but he gave the example of, I think, anger. But you can replace this with anxiety, depression. I mean, literally anything that's happening in the moment. And he talked about recognizing the anger that's within us. So let's say, okay, there's anger within me. You're not pretending like there's not. You're not suppressing it, pushing it away. You're allowing it to be there. Right now, there's anger within me. But the difference is you are recognizing that anger is an experiencing that is happening within my awareness. And so that creates this little, ever so subtle distance between you and the anger. So while there's anger in my experience, I am not the anger. I am the awareness of the anger as it's arising. Doesn't mean you feel any better or the anger magically disappears, but it takes a lot of gasoline out of, the motivation in that, a lot of the fuel right out of it. So it's still there, but you're no longer identified. So that's the non-identification part.
Love it. Thank you. And if we go from I am awareness, we'll jump around just a little bit.
Yeah.
But Ram Dass's mantra of I am loving awareness.
Love that. And that's something I use all the time. And I don't know if it was this book or Everything Mind, my book before it, but I talked about an experience I had at a Slayer concert. God's honest truth. Slayer. I still love heavy metal. I'm the first to say it. To me, that is still very spiritual. And to each their own. For me, that works. So I'm at a Slayer concert, and I'm there practicing the I am loving awareness. And I was actually covering the show for my website. So I'm up in front of, 20,000 people photographing. There's big hot flames shooting off. It's the whole light show. It's just a very surreal experience. And I remember at one point, I turned around and I just looked at the sea of people, and I'm doing this mantra, I am loving awareness. And it was a really beautiful, non-dual, interconnected experience. Chris Grosso had left the building, and there was just this loving awareness witnessing the sea of other loving awareness. It was just this one form of lifing itself through this vessel, just the same as it was all the other life forms. And it didn't end there. It was everything, the barricades, the whole amphitheater, the amps, all of it was just this expression of this one beautiful underlying force. Some call it Brahman, some might call it Buddha mind, Christ consciousness, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. It was just really beautiful. And that was a result of just sitting with I am loving awareness, even at a Slayer concert.
I couldn't have planned that one, that's for sure. How important is it to pull back to the witness?
Here's the trick is that the witness is there all the time. It was there before we were born. It will be there after we die. It is all that is. So you listen to teachers like, let's say, Ramana Maharshi, or more contemporary like Adyashanti, beautiful teachers who speak basically from this space. Ramana had this experience where his ego self just completely dissipated when he was a teenager, and that was it for him. Adyashanti talks about he had this non-dual experience. It was not a continual abiding experience, but it was one that happened. And then I think he talks about 6 years after that, where it kind of came and went, and then finally it dissolved. And you just see things a little differently. In Buddhism, it's called stream entry, where you enter that stream and you see the interconnectivity of all things. But for most people, just like Adyashanti, it comes and goes. The trick is if we are making it a part of our own practice throughout the day, and that could be as simple as putting a sticky note on your computer, whether it's at work, at home, both, now, simply the word now, or witnessing awareness, or whatever a word that resonates for you is, or setting a little timer on your phone, depending on if circumstances permit, where it goes off, whether it's 15 minutes, every hour, every few hours. And then it's like riding a bike. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. So I still certainly get lost, or not lost. I'm coming from the place of Chris. Chris is in the driver's seat. But more frequently than not throughout the day, it comes back to it's almost this, it's like Pavlov's dog, the little bell goes off, I've been trained, and it's not a bell on my phone anymore. It's just an internal remembrance of, hey, you're lost in thought. And that doesn't mean I'm judging myself. It's like, oh yeah, I'm lost in thought. Let's come back to this moment. And sometimes that lasts for a couple of seconds, sometimes a few minutes, sometimes half an hour, but it doesn't matter. It's just learning to be patient with it and also being grateful, that like I have that awareness today. And because in that place there are no problems. And I don't think that's a form of spiritual bypass. I think that's just really when you are right now in this present moment, that's all there is. All the future anxieties, all the past guilt or shame or whatever might come along with that, they're literally not able to be there. They're not possible in this present moment because all that is in this moment is, period. Anything we add on to it takes us out of that.
So let's go from that, and we'll have some dichotomy here. Let's go
Yeah.
from all there is the now and the present moment, and then let's go to Gabor, if I pronounce this right, Gabor Mate, the primary problem, and he says addiction is an attempt to solve a problem. What is that?
So the problem is different for everybody, but we have this something. What I like that he talks about is also that goes hand in hand with that is recovery. And I think this is a good answer. He's like, well, what are we recovering? Ourselves. What have we lost? A part of ourselves. So that's essentially, everyone has their own life story. We have our own issues. We have our own troubles, traumas, etc., our hardships. And those create whatever form of addiction. And we all have them. Gabor, I love how he talks about his. He is one of the world's most renowned addiction experts in the world. The man is absolutely brilliant. But he does not struggle with an addiction to drugs or alcohol. His addiction is music, purchasing music. And I remember, I'd read about that before I talked to him, but thinking when I read about it, like, wow, how true is that? Like we all have this thing, and many of us have multiple things. For me, it's not just drugs and alcohol. It certainly could be music. It could be food. It could be, in the past, codependency in relationships. But things that are taking me out of this moment, that for me is the primary problem of trying to reach outside of myself to fix something that is inside and can be only fixed from within me. It has to be walked through. The only way out is through. I love that saying because for me, that's one of the greatest truths I've ever come to know and experience. So, I think, but again, like as far as like the actual semantics of what the problem is, that varies from person to person. But it's essentially looking outside of ourselves to fill whatever void, whatever caused that to be there. When again, it's only from inside that we can do that.
Since we're talking about the inside, and we all, well, I can't speak for Adyashanti maybe, but almost all of us have these challenges.
Yeah.
What's the importance then when this happens of going to compassion?
I think, so I can only speak from my own experience, but I think that, well, I can also speak to a lot of people I've talked with, and it seems like a general consensus, and this might not be the case for everyone, but a general consensus is when these things pop up for us, whatever they may be, the natural human tendency is to lean towards judgment of them. And I'm a bad person, whether it's something I did was bad or I am bad because I'm feeling this, or crummy, this or that. There's some kind of negative connotation that often for many of us comes along with it. So one of the beautiful things we can do is use that, is almost coming back to that bell analogy, use that as a way to remind ourselves, oh wait, I'm judging when I don't really need to be judging. I have a choice right here. Instead of judging, well, I can judge, or I can make the conscious effort to bring compassion to this, to hold this with an open heart, to, instead of make this part of myself feel bad, because it is a part of us, I can bring compassion to it, So my therapist helped me learn that. We were talking about my addictive nature and relapses I've suffered, and anytime I would think of those, I would get tense, and I would, view them as like that awful stepchild, the get out of here, you're no good. And he helped me realize, but Chris, that's a part of you, and what you're doing is you are judging, and you're taking this part and you are showing it this, this, like I said, like you're bad. What would happen if you decided to love and have compassion for that part, not act out on it, but open your heart to it and be with it, because that is a part of you just as much as the good stuff. And yeah, that's carried over with me into so many different areas of my life. So far from perfect at it, but it's a practice well worth undertaking, really just bringing that up and holding that compassion.
And you came here with this piece of you for this particular journey.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced to help others. So while we don't ever want another relapse situation,
Right.
these are not as they appear to be at all, and may serve a much greater purpose. Lisa Rankin, she said, what if there was nothing wrong with you falling off the wagon? What if this is the next phase of your soul's journey?
She was the second person that said that to me. Her and Mirabai Starr both said that to me in the matter of a couple of weeks. And it was just like, wow, exactly. Like, my goodness, I definitely did not look at it under that, scope by any means. And when I started to really consider that and think about it, I started to think back, because it wasn't the only time I've relapsed, unfortunately. And I am lucky to be alive, because I could have died many times over. And I know people that unfortunately have died because of this. But what I recognize from that relapse and the ones prior to that, for the most part, I always use them as a catalyst to greater growth in my life, to going deeper into myself. Why did I relapse? I really, instead of just saying, oh, I relapsed, whatever, no, like, what part of me is not being met? Where is there, what is inside of me that is still not healed, that is causing me to go back to these self-defeating behaviors that I know ultimately could take my life, if not land me back in a jail cell or an emergency room or even a psychiatric hospital, all things I've experienced more than once. So that, that these bottoms we hit in our lives, whether substance related or not, and maybe not even bottoms, but hardships we experience, when we take them and use them as a means of growth and using that as a tool to go deeper in ourselves, they can be some of the most beautiful things that we experience. I don't know that Thich Nhat Hanh is the one who technically coined this, but he says very frequently, no mud, no lotus.
Amen.
How true, and that's how I've had to look at much of my life. I don't know that I am necessarily a lotus in this moment, but I will tell you, I've gone through plenty of mud and I've had lotus moments. So I'm very grateful for that.
And Chris, you're a lotus today for everybody listening to this
Well,
and watching this.
I do appreciate that.
I can't resist this next question. What does the law of attraction have to do with spiritual puberty?
So that was in the, was that Lissa that was talking to that? Okay. Yeah. So, I think she was talking about the fact that there is a such thing as the law of attraction. But I think, without naming names or other books or films or anything of that nature, I think that what Lissa was getting at, and I'll be honest, I agree with her, there are certain ways it's presented that I love that phrase. I'd never heard of it worded like that, but in a spiritually pubescent manner. You dream it, you think it, you feel it, you're gonna get it. And it's a kind of very materialistic, like, grasp. And I think Lissa talks about the greater implications of what can really happen with that, in our own lives. And it's not just about getting Ferraris and the perfect mate. And there's nothing wrong with any of that either, but that's not all there is to it. And there are greater details, and I don't know, it's not the kind of fluffy, watered down version that I think primarily led to its popularity. So I also don't think Alyssa nor myself would talk down about that, but it's just that, hey, there's something more to it, and there's deeper implications behind it. And that's the case, I think, with a lot of spirituality in general. And it's nice to see a shift with things going deeper as the years go on. It's great that some of it that has been very watered down has gotten people's feet in the door, but a lot of people are hungry for something deeper, something with more substance. Let's go deeper than just kind of putting a Band-Aid on things. So
let's flip to the other side of the coin then. Tosha Silver and surrender.
Yeah, I love her work, and that's why the the title of that chapter is "God is not your," because Tasha had that was I don't know if it's the name of it. I don't know. Somehow it came up, and that's something she said, and Lissa had talked about that. But surrendering in general to life, to living life on life's terms, not to be confused with do the footwork when there is footwork to be done. But this reminds me of a Zen saying, let go or be dragged. That's when I have to constantly remind myself of. So it's not saying don't do what you can do in the moment. By all means, do that. Have goals, take action steps. But the serenity prayer and recovery is a very big one for me. And I'm sure everyone knows it, but it's worth repeating. God or whatever you believe in, that is your higher power. But, just to stick with the original prayer, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Mm-hmm. Big. The courage to change the things that I can. And then the biggest part for me, the wisdom to know the difference. So that to me really sums up surrender,
Awesome. So let's go from there to happiness and Sharon Salzberg.
Yeah, I love Sharon. She is a big proponent, a big teacher of loving kindness, which has probably been the most influential and life-changing practice I've implemented, if not the most, one of the top 3 by far, to the point where, I have it tattooed across my hands.
If you can I love it. There.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
that's
and
a big
is that
one.
An apple and what do I see
it's
on the
actually,
other hand?
So we have a sacred heart.
Sacred heart, okay.
Yep, and then we have, speaking of lotuses, a lotus.
Oh, okay, but now I've got to go to the knuckles because I caught something else there. What am I looking at? And maybe we should go there. You talk about tattoos and what they mean to you, so we might as well 70% of your body, is that correct? And then we'll get to Sharon here.
I think more than that at this point, because I've gotten a lot more since the book came out. But yeah, so I have a lot. And I just want to say quickly to Sharon's point, to loving kindness, and I'm happy to talk about tattoos, but if anyone's not familiar with that practice, I highly recommend taking a few minutes. You can either Google Sharon Salzberg and loving kindness, or just loving kindness in general, because it's taught by many different teachers, Pema Chodron, Noah Levine, I mean, all sorts of teachers. It's a very great practice worth taking up. And it was really cool for me one day, because I posted that picture of my hands, and I saw an article from Sharon pop up, and it had the image of my hands of that tattoo on her website. And I was like, whoa, how cool is that?
How do you practice loving kindness on a regular basis?
Sure. So I'll give you a very quick abridged version, because there's there's a longer version, a shorthand version. The beautiful thing is you can really kind of take it and work with it in a way that feels good to you. And Sharon says that, the point is to cultivate a greater sense of loving kindness towards yourself. And that way you can also do it with others. So there are general phrases that are suggested, but you use whatever phrases that work for you. And I take the ones that Sharon uses because I love those. To me, they really resonated. So she uses the phrases, may I be at peace, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. And she just says that. So when I do it, if I have the time, you can do this anywhere, anytime, but I like to, if I have a few minutes in the morning, I close my eyes, I just put my hands over my heart center, because that, helps me anchor into that place. And I say that to myself. And I really, in the beginning, it was very hard, because I had no self-love, I had no self-worth. And that's why I say this was such an impactful practice for me. It taught me how to have love for myself, even just a smidge in the beginning, but it grew and grew as I continued with this practice. So I start with myself, and that's generally how the practice is taught. But Sharon will say, if you really can't start with yourself, that's okay. Put yourself later in the practice. But the general bookends are you start with yourself, and then you work through these stages of then you bring a loved one into mind, like a parent, a significant other, then someone that's close to you, maybe a sibling, a friend, then what's considered a neutral person could be like your mailman, someone you see at your local coffee shop you don't really have any emotional tie to. And before I go any further, I should say, when you go through these steps, you bring this person into mind. Whoever comes into mind is totally applicable, and you continue to make the affirmation for them. So may so-and-so be at peace. May they be happy, healthy. May they live with ease. And so you're extending that wish of loving kindness and well-being to them. And then to the the neutral person, and then from there to a difficult person. Doesn't have to be your arch nemesis, but someone you've had difficulties with, maybe a boss at work or a coworker or an in-law or a family member, whomever. And that can be very tough for people too. But you do your best in that moment to as sincerely as you can, and it might just be a tiny bit of sincerity. It might be begrudging, but do your best. May so and so be at peace. May they be happy, healthy, live with ease. And then the general bookend is you end with, may all beings, all sentient beings on Earth, throughout the entire cosmos, who knows what's out there, may all sentient beings be at peace, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And I mean, there's more to the practice, like imagining the people or imagining heart going out of your light to them and the world becoming engulfed in light and the universe. But it can be a detailed practice, but it really can be that simple as just may I. And you go through those phrases or whatever work for you, and then bring in any of the people I mentioned, a loved one, a close person, neutral, whomever, difficult person, and then just end with all beings. So even just like a 3-person practice, you could do it in a minute. And really, what a beautiful way to like get your mind and heart into that space of compassion and kindness.
Absolutely love it. So now, going briefly to the tattoos, and I didn't catch the ones in front below the love and kindness. So we have hope. Yeah.
We have, these are initials for In My Heart Forever.
Yeah.
And then we have connected.
Oh my gosh, so on your knuckles you have even more, a bookworm.
Bookworm, yep. And then on the inside of my knuckles.
Oh my God.
Love more. That's just a reminder for me. So when I look at my hands, love more. It's a constant reminder. But yeah, I mean, they go on and on. I have Om Shanti on the sides. I have Ram. Wow, those are kind of tough to see. No, wait. There they are. Yeah.
Yeah,
so I have
in
Ram
Sanskrit.
on the inside. Yep, those are the way Maharaji, my guru, had written them. And then, yeah, I'm just, I'm covered. Hands, arms, back of my neck. I just got my whole neck
around
is done
your
up.
neck. Yep.
Yeah, I got that about a month ago, all in one sitting. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, my whole chest, back, legs, I'm covered. I love tattooing, and I know it's not for everybody, and I completely respect that. I am much more concerned with what's going on your insides rather than your outside. So
I like how you use the outside, though, as both a reflection of what you desire on the inside and as a reminder. So you're like, look, I've got all this surface area. Why don't I put it to good use?
And that's what I try to do. Yeah. It's funny, though. It kind of, I wouldn't say backfires, but it reminds me of how people really do judge a book by its cover often. And I live in a nice area of West Hartford, Connecticut, and I go running, as we were talking about, and it wasn't that long ago, like a week ago, I came home and I like to walk a little bit at the end to stretch my legs out, let my heart rate come down. And unfortunately, there was a woman who was starting to get out of her car. She was not close to me, but a few houses up. She saw me walking, I'm walking peacefully. She got back into her car and locked the doors. And I just had to laugh. I'm like, that's her business, and then I told my girlfriend later on, she's like, oh my God, she's like, if she only knew like what a gentle, like teddy bear you are, you teach meditation and mindfulness and love. And I was like, I know, but there's some people they really just judge a book by its cover. But that's part of why I'm grateful for these tattoos, because I've gotten to know people over the years who did tell me like, wow, I was scared when I saw you, but you're so kind. And I'm like, you'd be surprised. A lot of people with tattoos are really kind, loving people, whether they're into spirituality or not. Like, don't judge, don't write someone off just because of their appearance.
When I wrote my first book, College Confidence with ADD, I would go into this 24-hour coffee shop called the Alley Cat Cafe, Fort Collins, Colorado. 6 p.m., I'd be there till 6 a.m., and I would say somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, what I called the pin cushions would come out. And it's everybody with the tattoos and the nose rings and the coolest people I have ever met in my life.
Yeah, seriously, so many sweet people. Not to say that there can't be jerks in that category, but there can be jerks anywhere in life. It is what it is. But I'm so glad you had that experience, because all people need to do is talk to somebody else, and you might be surprised. You'll probably be surprised.
So let's go from there, and let's talk about writing for a minute. We'll talk about Jay Ivey and how do we write to help ourselves.
That was awesome. I met Jay at a conference we were speaking at, Sun Valley Wellness Festival, pretty big festival out in Idaho of all places, but it was gorgeous. And we have a love for hip hop. We hit it off, and I grabbed his book while we were there. And it's funny because years before, I'm a big fan of the first Kanye West record, The College Dropout, and Jay Ivy was on one of those songs with Jay-Z. And I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, like it was, worlds colliding. And so here we are speaking at a really lovely mindfulness festival. Jewel was there, Marianne Williamson, MC Yogi, a lot of great people, David White. And so we had dinner, me, him, and his wife, and it was a really special night. And so I got his book, read it, and loved it. So that's why I had him in my book. But so Jay talks quite a bit about writing, as you mentioned, for forgiveness and healing. And his experience was that he had a father whom he was close with, and he was a radio DJ in Chicago. And he ended up, unfortunately, becoming an alcoholic, and Jay was separated from him. And that caused a lot of inner strife within Jay's life, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of isolation. And it wasn't until he started writing about that experience, about his father, and about, the many other things that came as a result of that, that he began to find freedom from that and essentially was able to find true forgiveness for his father. And he ended up reconciling with his father. He never knew if he would, but his father ended up reaching out to him, and they have this loving relationship today. And that was really beautiful. And I resonated with that because for me, I'm very much introverted, which you wouldn't know when I do interviews or I speak. For some reason, I can turn it on and do this. But when I'm not, like it might be a Friday or Saturday night and I'm perfectly happy alone with a book, like I'm okay. I don't need to be out all the time. But I mention that because early on in my experience of healing and recovery, I was not comfortable talking about that pain within myself to another person or sharing about it. So it was suggested to me to start journaling about it. And I did that. And that was a wonderful first step because even though I couldn't talk to somebody else, I could still get it out in that way. And I remember I would burn the pages when I was done, or I would crumple them up and put them into other garbage because I didn't want anyone to see what I was writing or find it. But it was such a great way for me to start making baby steps, being able towards finding that freedom, that forgiveness for myself and then for others as well.
And it's a practice that I teach people in my coaching. There's actually a power to writing it out and then burning or shredding it. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between getting it out on paper and the word itself or the thing itself. So when you shred it, the subconscious thinks you're getting rid of it.
Yeah, right? How cool is that? Yeah,
so let's go from that. We're going to double all the way back. We're going to take you back to the beginning of the arc for today. What were the clues or cues months before things took place that you were slipping?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that because what is often overlooked, and I didn't know this for a long time myself, is that in regards to addiction, speaking with drugs and alcohol, the relapse actually starts months before you pick up that substance. The relapse technically ends once you pick it up because then you're just back in addiction. So the relapse it's already happened. So it's different for everyone, but for me, it was subtle things. Yes, as I mentioned, like things in my marriage were rocky. So there was that. I was very busy with work, with speaking. So I had blurred the lines between, because my writing and work is in spirituality, self-help, addiction, recovery. So to me, I was, well, even though I'm not hitting as many meetings or seeing my therapist as often or doing the things I should do for my recovery, I'm still working in the field, and that's an okay substitute where it's not, so I had blurred those lines. So that was a big thing. And then other little things I noticed in retrospect were I would be driving by a package store and I would notice, oh, they're still open. And it was like 9 o'clock at night or something. And for some reason in the back of my mind, oh, that's weird. Or if I was sitting outside of I remember one time I was sitting outside of a Stop and Shop and there was a package store attached to it on the side. And I was waiting for a friend to come out and I was watching people come in and out of that package store and I was paying close attention to what they were buying, like what kinds of beers, what kind of whiskey, how much did they have? And then I would start to romanticize that in my mind. And that's dangerous territory. So it's not that those things are inherently wrong, because that can naturally be an occurrence of those of us who struggle with the illness of addiction. But it's what we do with that. And I wasn't doing anything with it. That's why they stress the importance of talking to other people, of having a support network. So I've mentioned the 12 steps or fellowships, because those are part of my recovery. They work, but I know that they don't work for everybody. So I would never say you need to do this or that. All I advocate for is please find what does work for you. I know people have found it strictly through meditation or yoga. Some people found it in Noah Levine's refuge recovery, or there's other outlets of recovery that smart recovery, all sorts of stuff. Some people have found it in nature and gardening and things of that nature. But the one key element, or two big elements that I would recommend, and that I definitely speak from personal experiences, like we were just talking about prior to this, is talking to someone else about it, getting it out, having that support network. And two, which goes hand in hand, don't do it alone, which, being that introvert like I am, and many people that struggle with this are, we want to do it alone. We don't. It's hard to ask for help. It's hard for anyone to ask for help, but add that introversion to it, very tough.
And that also goes along with shame and embarrassment.
Of course. Absolutely. Something I struggled with too was being or having this illness where for the rest of my life, I will have thoughts come in. I had it just a couple days ago, like, boy, a shot of whiskey would be great right now. Or, boy, this drug would be great right now. I didn't consciously cultivate this thought. It just popped into my mind. It might be a smell. It might be a sunny day. It might be anything can put that thought into my mind. And I used to feel such guilt and shame because it's like, oh, I'm in recovery. I shouldn't be thinking those thoughts. No, that's a natural part of what comes along with it. And that's okay. I'm not choosing that. So, to see that and to be gentle with myself, as long as I'm not acting out on it, as long as I'm not really romanticizing it, it's just like, oh, hey, I see you thought, like, there you are. It's like we were saying earlier about, instead of scolding parts of ourselves, holding them with compassion, because it is a part of me. So
how important is it? You just mentioned something that to me, it goes off the meter. The importance of being gentle with yourself. And what does that really look like?
Yeah. So, that's been so big for me. Like, people often ask me, if there was one thing you could tell your younger self or piece of advice, what would it be? And it's usually something to that effect, like, relax, be more gentle with yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's going to be okay if you let it be okay. And that is so hard because, again, we are our own worst self-critics. But learning to really hold ourselves, almost, Thich Nhat Hanh gives this analogy, and I love this, in a way that a mother would hold a newborn baby, in the arms of compassion. Why is it so much easier for us to be compassionate with others, but not with ourselves? Like, for example, I don't remember who talked about this, but they said something about, catch yourself one day when you're talking negatively to yourself. Doesn't matter what it's about, but just pay attention to that. Now imagine yourself saying that, talking in that manner to a loved one. Can you really picture yourself doing that? And most of us would probably say, no, I wouldn't talk to somebody else like that. Well, then why is it okay to talk to yourself like that?
Thank you.
What's the answer there? And I'm not saying that I have the answer, but I can tell you that I am just as much deserving of that love as my loved ones are. And that is a hard thing for me to say and to act upon, because I still do have that deeply rooted stuff, the self-worth issues, but they've gotten a lot better. And I do believe in my heart that I am worthy of that love, and again, some days are better than others, but just the fact that I can sit here, Michael, and say that to you is a huge leap from where I used to be. Not even, not that long ago. So that's part of the gentleness, like being gentle. Just, it's okay. It's okay to hold ourselves with love.
So what's the importance of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Impractical Practical Jokers, The Office, and Chappelle Show?
Easy. Learning to laugh. What is life if we can't laugh? And for me, those are just some shows that really make me laugh. Insert whatever show makes you laugh. And I love things outside of comedy too. But laughter is such healing medicine, truly. Like, there's a meme, I forgot how it's worded, but it's like a 2-year-old holding a toy phone, and it's like, no matter how gangster you think you are, a 2-year-old hands you a toy phone, you're going to say hello, and it's like, absolutely. So just learning to laugh more, learning to laugh at ourselves more, learning to cultivate a sense of lightheartedness as we go about our days. And of course, some situations that's more difficult than others, and no, it's probably not always possible, but laughing as much as as possible, it's tremendous. Really, it just sitting there and even putting a smile on your face. Like, I have a friend who teaches laughter yoga, and being that introvert, I didn't want to try it. And then we were teaching a workshop together, and I was forced to do it, and I loved it. Like, I was very shy about doing it, but once I started, my inhibitions lowered, and I was just laughing. I couldn't not laugh, and I felt so elated afterwards. Really, my heart was just like, it was open, it was warm, I was joyous, and I feel a little corny talking about it right now, but you know what? It was beautiful. It was really great. Like, so yeah, and so again, those are just, to me, some easy go-to. I can be having the worst day, and I put on an episode of Impractical Jokers, or I watch Larry David, or The Office, or Seinfeld. There's no way I'm not going to laugh. I don't care how bad my day is. I mean, maybe if I lost a dear one to something, but aside from that, there's not much that's going to keep me from those shows putting me in a good mood.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Jessica and I were watching, I think it was this weekend, Seinfeld, in the, comedians. Actually, Dave Chappelle was in one of the episodes. Comedians getting coffee in cars or something like that.
Great
and we're
show.
like, well, what about having like two spiritual people driving along in a car going to get donuts? How would that go over?
Yeah, that's a great idea. You might have $1 million idea right there.
You never know.
This is true.
This has been phenomenal. We're not quite done yet, but I just want to send you all my love. I am so, I love you, man. I am so thankful that you're still here, that you're sharing. I cannot say that enough. You're a gift.
Thank you, Mike.
I don't even know where to go with it. I am just so thankful for your work and what you're sharing with people.
More important than any words right now is that I sincerely feel it. And to that, I deeply thank you. Love right back. Sincerely thank you. I love when I have these heart connections, and they mean the world to me. So big thank you.
Thank you. Received. What one homework assignment would you give people today so they can begin to take action?
Great question, because I love asking people that too. And my answer probably varies, but I think based on this conversation we've just had, it's a reminder to me of how important it is to cultivate that gentleness and loving kindness towards ourselves. So it could be as simple as, and this might be difficult for people, like I said it was for me, but even if you don't want to do the whole loving kindness practice, try just this. If you're comfortable doing it, just placing your hands over your heart. You can do it in private. Probably easier to do in private. I like to close my eyes when I do these things just because it cuts off my external stimulation. But you can do it with your eyes open. Doesn't matter. But, just hold yourself for a second. Quiet down. Bring your awareness into your heart center. And oftentimes when I do that, I start to feel a sensation of warmth there. You might not, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. But really just bringing awareness into that part of our bodies. And then finding some kind of supportive words to say to yourself. And you don't have to say them out loud. It doesn't matter. You can say them to yourself mentally. But, it could be as simple as, I am loved. Even if you don't believe it, if they say fake it till you make it for a reason, it really does work. So, I am loved. I am loved. And more importantly than repeating that to yourself, try to feel the sensation that you are loved right now. You're being held. And not just by your own hands, but by the life that gives energy to those hands. There is something much greater than ourselves that is orchestrating this grand dance of life. And that absolutely loves you right now. And that's what's giving life and energy to the hands that are holding you in this moment. So if you can't feel that semblance of love towards yourself, see if you can allow a source of love outside of just you, that is actually within you, to show you that love. And that would be what I would offer your audience, even if it's just for 1 minute a day, 1 minute every other day, something simple like that. And if not that, anything else that cultivates love and gentleness and kindness for you.
Beautiful. So before we do a little wrap-up meditation here, and we're going to have you pull out the guitar, any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today, Chris?
I think that's it. I just encourage you to do your best to find any semblance you can of lightheartedness, of joy. Maybe take a moment or two today to pamper yourself in whatever small way get an ice cream cone or a vegan treat or whatever makes you happy. Hold your partner a little closer. Tell someone I love you. Do a random act of kindness. Who knows? Just do something. Anything that makes you feel a little better, and bonus points if it's of service to other people. That would be what I would leave this on.
Woohoo! Where can people go to find your beautiful book, Dead Set on Living, and find out more?
They can anywhere books are sold, in Barnes and Noble. I think that's one of our last remaining in-store book houses, minus of course the wonderful independent book publishers, who I would strongly encourage listeners to buy it there if at all possible, just because I'm always about supporting independent ventures. But aside from that, of course, any of the online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you buy books, IndieBound, it's available anywhere books are sold.
And your website?
The IndieSpiritualist.com. And you can connect with me there. You can find my other books there. You can, if you fill out the contact form, you want to send me a message, I always respond. Sometimes it might take a little while, but I respond to every message I get. If you take the time to write, I'll take the time to write back. But yeah, there's all sorts of comings and goings on that page. So
awesome. And if you didn't catch the IndieSpiritualist.com, come on over to InspireNationShow.com and we'll get you over to the IndieSpiritualist.com. All right. Do you have a guitar by your side there by chance?
I do. So
completely unplanned.
Unplanned. Well, it kind of was. So no, Michael and I were discussing a meditation for the end. And I said, how about a guitar? So full disclosure, I've never done this on a podcast before, so I'm going to hope this sounds all right. I'll give you a real quick test before we start. You can let me know how it sounds. But yeah, I love, as I'm pulling this over, I love to, whenever possible, bring my guitar to events I'm speaking at or workshops I lead. I do a lot of workshops with younger people, and they love the guitar meditation. I don't sing. I just play some soft ambient music, which for me is very, very meditative. And I hope your audience likes it too. I hope that sounded all right. My guitar's a lot of tune. I apologize. This really was kind of unplanned, so but always fun to play guitar.
That was beautiful, Chris.
Well,
That was
thanks.
our first two. I've had drums on before for shamanic journeying, but I haven't had a
Nice.
guitar on yet.
Well, there
This
we
was
go.
beautiful.
Awesome.
Woohoo!
I'm so glad we were able to do it. My first time podcasting it up like that, so that was grad. A lot of fun.
Awesome. Awesome. I can't thank you enough, Chris. This has been so beautiful. I hope everybody who needs it goes on out and gets dead set on living. This has
Thank
been phenomenal, and you're real, you're human. We all are. You're willing to share it. And can't thank you enough.
The feeling is more than mutual, and I deeply bow to you for the work you're doing in the world. We need as much as we can get of it now more than ever. So thank you, Michael.
You're most welcome, and to you as well. Gonna crank it up here for the finish after that just beautiful, blissful music. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get dead set on living, and begin taking your beautiful journey today and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Chris.
My thanks to you. I forgot how fun it is doing this with you. So what a great reminder. You're a blast, Michael. Seriously, what a nice breath of fresh air.
When Jessica, she gets all the requests, she got the request to have you back on. I'm like, Chris, I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but heart. He's all heart. He's all heart. He's all heart. We've got to have him on the show.
And I would love to have you on my show and bring your energy over there if that's something you'd be interested in doing.
I would be honored anytime, anywhere. You've got
Awesome. I would love it. Cool.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!